Say is that everybody's a leader. We all lead something, whether it's leading ourselves, leading our families, leading in a business, whatever that might be. And I found that this isn't just for church people, you know what I'm saying? This is a conference for anyone truly that wants to grow in their leadership. And we want to encourage you to spread the word and to get as many people to come as possible. But for us as a church, we want to raise up the value of leadership. I'm going to be putting on our own leadership training on a monthly basis that for anyone that's interested. And I'm primarily focusing on the next generation as well. I'm personally recruiting some of the young 20-year-olds that I want to mentor and to grow up into this. And I'm going to be using former videos from the GLSs, in the years past. So it's something that's of value here at the church as well. The details are by June, if we sign up by June 28th, they give us an early bird rate of $99. I think the conference itself is $199. So it is a 2-day conference on August, 10th and 11th, I think? Don't hold me to that. I'll get you the details. But so $99, I think that's a great thing, and you can just sign up online. Just go to willowcreek.com, I believe. All right, so I think that's it for now. Remind me 2 announcements at the end. All right, so this morning we're going to talk about a teaching that I'm calling I Am More Than What I Own, okay? And we're going to talk about the parable of the rich fool. I love these parables. I hope that you've been enjoying this series. It continues to challenge me on all different levels. I do believe that there's so many different layers and meaning. And as I enter into conversations with people, it's great to see how they're taking the teaching and then applying it into their lives or how they're wrestling with it. And so I hope this is no different. This one, I think, is a very challenging one, but at the same time, I feel it's so necessary because it is going to challenge us in our finances. It's going to challenge us in how we view like materialistic type of things. And so I think it's going to impact all of us on a different level. But before I get into the actual parable, I want to talk to you about the context in which Jesus was teaching, because I find it fascinating. Sometimes when we read the scriptures, we kind of can single out a story. And what I did is I back read a little bit. And when you do that, you start seeing, like, why was Jesus all of a sudden talking about this parable? And I'm not going to do this that well, but I want you to kind of see, I want you to visualize in your head a very, a coach of a big game in the locker room who's intensely challenging his players to play at that highest level. He's preparing them for the highest level of competition, and he's animated, and he's inspiring them, and he's heated. All right, and it's just a very intense situation. And this is what Jesus found himself in. He was doing a teaching about good and evil. And he was trying to tell his disciples, saying, you know what? Those who follow me, this is not going to be easy. There's going to be challenges. And he starts talking about the good is that, you know what? I know you intimately. I know everything about you. I care about you. I even know the numbers of the hairs of your head. And I'm going to see you through anything and everything. But you have to understand that there's evil in this world. And he's being intense. He said, and the evil one is going to try to destroy you. He's going to try to rip away from everything that you believe in. And that thing that I'm putting before you, that mission that I'm holding up before you, he's going to undermine it in every way possible. So he's challenging his leaders. He's riveting, and he has their attention. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this man says, someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Out of the blue. Jesus is talking about the mission. He's talking about good versus evil. He's talking about that you have to follow me with everything that you have. And then all of a sudden this guy goes, "Teacher, tell me my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Can you imagine that? Think about if you're in that locker room, right? And the coach is trying to get you ready for the big game. And you go, "Yeah, I took my girl on a date last night." Like, it has nothing to do with what he's talking about. And it took him, it's like, aren't you getting what I'm teaching you? Don't you see the seriousness of what I'm trying to convey? So this thing comes out of left field, but what it tells us, it reveals to us that this man was consumed by earthly possessions. He's consumed by the pressures of this world and not being treated fairly. Because in those days, the inheritance would have gone to the firstborn son and would have gotten a double share. And then each subsequent son would have gotten an equal share after that. And there's many, many rules if there weren't sons, if there's daughters, et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore you with the details. But there were strict rules. So he obviously felt cheated by this. And all that was on his mind was what he didn't get. And it begs the question is like, where is his priorities? Here it is, his father just died. Instead of being consumed with the remorse and the sadness and to want to go get before God and be praying about this, say, console me, because I'm upset about losing a loved one, he's consumed with the possessions. He's consumed with what I don't have. So that's the setting that this story is being set in. And for us today, think about this. I don't know how many of you experienced this, but I think we've all heard the horror stories over inheritance, right? When someone dies and the brother and the sister and they're arguing about, their loved one's already passed, and yet here they are arguing about who's going to get what, and it tears families apart sometimes, and it's so sad. So what was taught 2,000 years ago is the same as today. Hold on, this thing's bothering me. I've tried something different today, and it's not working. I threw it down the back of the shirt instead of the front of the shirt. The point is that this thing about money, it's a powerful force. It can be powerful for good, and it can be powerful for evil. But it's one of those things that's so important for all of us today. So we're going to try something different today. Pull out your phones, especially if you can text. Okay, it doesn't even have to be a really smartphone, as long as you can text. So everyone pull out your phone. We're going to have a little quiz, all right? So we're going to do this. So what you do, go into, as if you're doing a text, okay? So you got to create new, you guys know how to send text. So type in 37607. That's the number, 37607, okay? That's who you're sending it to. And then type in the message, Stone Coast CC. All right? That's going to get you into the poll. Don't worry, we won't know who did what, so you don't have to worry about anonymity. So when you answer this, it's no big deal. All right? So, everyone there? You typed it in? Okay, take your time. But the first question when you get there, so if you're already there, the first question is, if I made more money, it would solve my problems. So you're going to do what?
So you're going to get a text back that says you've entered the session, and it's going to be, you respond back with a capital A for yes, or a capital B for no.
It can just be A or B. So A for yes, B for no. So if I made more money, it would solve my problems. Type A for yes or type B for no. That's all you have to do.
It won't charge you. It won't charge you, trust me.
So I am going to put in a letter.
Those are questions, so we have to pick which one you think.
No, so this one's not here. This one's not here.
Ignore the A and B up there.
If I made more money, it would solve my problems, yes or no. So yes is A and no is B. What's that? Most of your problems. I almost put in all because that's what we tend to think. All right, keep it going. I want everyone to put that in. Anyone need more time on that one? We're going to do one more. Anyone need more time? A for yes, B for no. Susan, you good?
No, I'm still on the live audience. I don't know where I am.
Oh, no, you're not supposed to be on the website. Oh, don't click the link in your text message. Do not click that link.
You don't? Follow instructions. This is whole lessons on can we follow instructions? Has nothing to do with material possessions whatsoever. How many of you have a smartphone that costs you $200 every month?
And then just type a message that says either A or B.
All right, but Susan, we're going to get you on the second one. All right, so 56% said no and 44%, oh, well, all right. All right, so now We're going to go to the next one. All right. So we'll come back to these numbers.
I had to steal this away real quick.
So you're going to do the same exact thing. You're just going to send a text now, just to that same thing, but to the second question, which is, if I had more stuff, I'd be happier. If I had more stuff, I'd be happier. So A for yes, B for no.
And you don't have to redo the Stone Coast CC.
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that.
A or B.
So if I had more stuff, I'd be happier. A for yes, B for no. Will, help Susan. He doesn't even own a phone. That's all right. You're doing great. You're doing great. Ooh, look at that. If I had more stuff, I'd be happier. Wow. That's impressive. Did you guys get the instructions right? That's impressive. That's surprising to me. All right, go back to the other one. Wow.
Can we re-answer the other one?
Yeah, I want to change my answer.
I didn't put an A or B, I accidentally put N.
You actually what?
I accidentally put N because I can't get yes or no out of my head.
Oh, gotcha. We'll do the math for us. Yes, we're going to add 2%.
So I got 19 responses for the first one and 21 for the second one.
Okay.
So this is the
All right. So if I had more money, it would solve my problems. Yes, 42%. No, 58%. 60-40, right? 60-40? All right. 62-38. All right. So if I had more money, it would solve my problems. It's funny that Wayne said that because I said the same thing. Give me 10 extra grand, and, I think it solves a few problems, definitely. I got a daughter going to school. That would help, right? This is a very interesting quiz. So we'll come back to that. So I just wanted to try this. So that was good. You guys did a great job. So we can use this in the future. So back to the parable. So Jesus gets interrupted as he's giving a very intense talk. And then he replies to the man, okay? So the guy talks about his inheritance. And he goes, man, anyone a football fan? When they go, come on, man. You ever see that? Come on, man. So that's what I'm thinking. Like Jesus is saying, come on, man. Who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? Then he said to them, watch out. Be on guard for all kinds of greed. Okay? And the word in Greek for greed is pleonexia. And it means a desire to have more. To covet, the covetousness, the avarice. Okay? So it's this desire that I want more. I have to have more. There's never enough. There's never enough stuff. When I get that promotion, it's not enough. I want that next promotion. When I get that new gadget, it's not enough. I got to get the next new gadget. And we always live with that discontentment that we never have enough. This kind of greed also talks about relationally, we would be willing to stab someone in the back at work in order to get that promotion. So that the greed that this scripture is talking about is saying it's gripping him at a very, very deep level, that he's willing to do whatever it would take to get more. Okay, so it's this constant nagging, and we might say in our day, trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? That there's this idea of like the person next to us, oh, they just got a new car. All right, I got to get a new car, and I get a little bit newer one, or a little bit better one, or whatever. And we're always trying to outdo the other. Okay, so Jesus is saying, watch out for this. Be on guard. And I just need someone to help me with this. 2 people, if you don't mind. Lenny, would you mind coming up here? Come on up, Claire. So, yeah. Claire, you come over this way because this will be interesting. Yeah, she has a bad back, okay? Yeah, Claire, don't make him look bad. All right, so what I want to talk a little bit about is the pull of the culture. All right. Will they be able to be seen? Can you get them on that? Yeah. Let's go over here just for now. All right. Go this way. Go that way. You what? Claire, you stay here. You go that way.
Just told me to put the camera away.
Hold this right here. Where's Nikki? She's all right. Yeah, listen, we don't want any marital strife over this. So what's going on is the pull of the culture. Okay? Because our culture, we live in a instant gratification culture, tug a little bit, just a little bit. This is constantly being pulled at us, that with the commercials coming at us, right? What do we deserve? If you just watch TV and you listen to all the commercials, give it a little tug, a little more. Okay, and go that way a little bit. Keep going. Pull it a little more. Just a little more. What I'm trying to represent, I moved over here for a reason, because every time this cross, this is what God is trying to intentional, how to live this life for the other, right? And we can be consumed by all the different possessions. All these things that we're going after. Like Ian shared his story last week about going through the hustle bustle of his work. And everything it was about him getting forward. It's being pulled. That's constant pull of the culture is always on us. But come back. You keep pulling this way. Christ is always pulling back, saying, we're trying to get you. Don't let her, though, because that is, don't hurt each other. But this thing here, right in the center, we talk about how do we keep God in the center of everything that we do. And I really believe that there's this tug of war going on, and we're getting pulled off of the center mark always. Every day we're being bombarded by messages of you don't have enough. We're not satisfied. We're not content. And the pull of the culture is saying, you know what? What more do I deserve? Don't I need this? You know, and the messages from the TV to the radio to the people that you surround yourself with are constantly pulling us off of the mark. All right, good. I think we can drop it for now, but maybe later. Thank you. Keep that image in your mind, okay? Because what I want us to do, we're going to keep repeating. Can you go to that thing? One's life doesn't consist in the abundance of possessions. This is the key verse for today. Can we say this out loud? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Is that really true? Is that really true in our lives? Which one is going to win out? The pull of the culture or what Jesus is trying to say to us? He's looking at this guy who's arguing over his inheritance. And he's saying, look, your life, the thing that why you're here, the reason why I put you on this earth has nothing to do with the abundance of possessions. But I feel like all of us are constantly being tugged at by this message, and we're wrestling with it. So my question is, what consumes you? What consumes me? What do you find yourself thinking about a lot? Is it a bigger TV? Is it new shoes, a new car, a new kitchen, that swimming pool, another outfit, sports equipment, the latest gadgets? I got to have more. It was true 2,000 years ago, and it's still true today, this battle that we're in. Say it with me one more time, and we'll say it again later. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Some of you can just take a picture of that and keep saying it over and over and over again. And that might be your action step this week, because this thing is killing you. This thing can ruin our lives. It can ruin our marriages. And this is what Jesus is trying to say. It's like, don't get taken off of the mark. Don't allow materialism, don't allow possessions to take us off what's truly important. Now, I learned this lesson a long time ago. And there was 2 things that happened. One was, and this is a silly little saying, but it's always stayed with me. And I might even butcher it, but it's how I interpret it. It's like, you ain't ever seen a U-Haul attached to a hearse. That's a good word image. Right? When the hearse is going by, all your possessions, all those things you worked so hard for, all that stuff, all those things that you thought mattered, they ain't going with you. Right? They're not going with us. So the challenge for us today is, what does one's life consist of? And God knows that materialism and the desire to get more is powerful, because it can take us away from the mission of caring about others and standing up for justice and helping put the world back to rights. This is what we're here for. One of the things I want to share, because I was wrestling with this because I've had several conversations with different folks about this thing, and I was sitting there going, like, Diane and I have done a really, really good job with this. This is something that we got married when Diane was 21 and I was 23, and we had just recently become Christians right at that same time. I became a Christian at 21 years of age. So 2 years into being a Christian, I had gotten married. And so obviously as a young couple, you have to work through this stuff, right? You have to talk about the bills and what's important to you. And we had a pretty good handle on our finances. We didn't have a ton of debt or anything like that. But during premarital counseling, I'll never forget, Pastor Dennis spent some time with us. And during that time, I was playing professional baseball. So I was on a trajectory that I could become a multimillionaire, or I could have to restart everything because I came out of high school and went to pro baseball. So I didn't even have a college degree. So Dennis was saying, you guys have to be very prepared for this. And he looked right at Diane and he said, you have to be prepared for this because your husband's going to need you to support him one way or the other. Because I could feel like a really big failure. And so we were on this path towards, richness and fame and all that stuff. So we had to be prepared for that because that can challenge your character and what's important, etc., right? And that's the pull of the culture. But if that doesn't work out, which the probability is that it wasn't, then you have to be ready to start all over with nothing. Okay, so anyone that thinks the life of a minor league baseball player is glamorous, it's not. We lived off of, I think back in 1990, I made $850 a month. Okay, that was it. The most I ever made playing baseball was $1,500 a month. And so Diane, she graduated from UMass and was a nutritionist. So we were basically living off of her income, and that was it. So then, fast forward a little bit, we took a class. It was called the Good Sense Financial Workshop, and they taught a principle called the 10-10-80 principle. And so we started to apply that. And we were doing, like I said, we were doing pretty well. We didn't have a ton of credit card debt or anything like that, maybe a couple of $1,000s, but we weren't yet in the practice of paying it off every month in full. We weren't giving, the Bible talks about giving 10% of your income, so we hadn't gotten to that level yet. So all of a sudden I took this class and it started teaching the 10-10-80 principle, which is to give your first 10% back to God, to give the next 10% back to yourself through savings, and then live off the rest. So we started wrestling with that. And again, the pull of the culture. Well, what about all the things that we want to do as a young married couple? So we were living in this little, I mean, you couldn't get a smaller house than what we were living in. We were renting it. And then all of a sudden, Diane's grandmother got sick, so we offered to live with her. And that was a blessing because it was a lot more affordable. And then we ended up living with Diane's parents. So, and then they helped us out by giving us a very, very inexpensive rent for many years. So we got to the point where for 10 years while we were having children, Diane didn't work. And we were living off of $40,000 to $45,000 over 10 years. And we were giving 10% of it away. And I'm not telling that in any way to brag at all. What I'm trying to tell you is this biblical principle, because I was thinking about it and saying, well, what makes this real? What keeps us centered here versus being pulled by the culture? And the scriptures give us this 10-10-80 principle to live by so that we can stay solid right here. And what happened was it took away from the pull of the culture. See, it broke the power of the money. And I think the giving part of that does that. When you start to give and you say, this isn't my money to begin with, this is God's money. He's the one that gave me the ability to earn it in the first place. Then all of a sudden, you're freed up by it. And now you couple that with the mission. And you ask, what does your life consist of? If it's not the abundance of possessions, then why are you here? And that's then the course of our lives together, right? And then you're trying to figure that out and you're trying to live on purpose, if you will, for God by making a difference in other people's lives. Okay, now fast forward, because all of us today, we have to keep up with the Joneses. So your kids, right? My kids, they played Little League baseball. Anyone, kids in Little League? How much a bats cost, Tom? 150, that's a cheap one. The kid that's hitting bombs isn't having a $150 bat. It's like $350 for a bat, the good ones, right? So My kids came up, oh, Dad, I got to get that bat because this kid who's like this little runt is hitting home runs, and my kids that can't hit it out of the infield. It's got to be the bat, right? So we go to the store, and I'm expecting $100 to pay for a bat, $300, $400 for these bats. I'm like, use your buddies. My mother raised me on thrift stores. All my clothes were from thrift stores. I have no problem with hand-me-downs. And we've been blessed with different family members and friends. All of our kids, they're getting good pants. They're just a couple years old. Who cares? But that's the thing of, now it's the $150 basketball sneakers because I got to get the, LeBron James kind. No, you don't. You know what we do? Go to clearance. That's how you can get the same one. We'll just wait a few months. But this thing is, what are we teaching? First of all, if we don't have it ourselves, we're not passing this down to the next generation. So this idea of saying, being able to be on mission for God, if you haven't gotten this figured out, this thing's going to overwhelm us. Just like this guy, when he was involved in this teaching, he couldn't even hear the teaching about the mission of Christ because all he was doing was seeing and hearing, this is what I need. This is all I want. And he missed out on everything that God had for him. So let's get back to the parable. In Luke 12:16, so all of that to say this is the parable that Jesus now teaches. And he says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. This verse, probably everyone says, what's the big deal? That verse is riveting to a first century Jew. And you know why? What's the key word? Anyone? What's the key word in that? What is it? What did someone say? Certain. Okay. You know what? If 15 people say it, we're going to get it. Abundant. It's not abundant. It's not certain. It's not rich. Ground. Why is it? Who said ground? Why? Any reason? What is it? Okay. Okay, so there's the earth. What did someone say over here? I'm missing out on the fun.
I mean, isn't the land, that's their whole entire, that's what gets passed around from generation to generation?
Yes.
That's where all their riches are because they need to be able to farm, they have
Right.
whatever. But if you don't have land, you don't have anything. You had mentioned a few, like in the earlier time, one of the things you talked about was when the man was in prison and, remember? And he was in prison, he had the land, and he was like, he had to go across the occupied place to get to his land in Babylon or something.
Okay. How many years ago?
It was like 4 or 5 weeks
Oh,
ago.
okay. Well, you're onto it because
It's all about land.
it is the land, and that's what I really want you to understand this because like this sentence, it seems like an innocent sentence. But the land was absolutely pivotal to the people that were hearing this, okay? So he's referring to things from their heritage. The land just wasn't there for them to happen to live on. In the first century, the possession of the land was a vital Jewish symbol. Families clung to their inheritance for religious reasons as well as economic ones. So if you go all the way back to the beginning in the scripture in Genesis where it talks about the garden, the land, and that we're called to tend that. Okay? And then God led the Israelites out of slavery, out of the land of Egypt, and brought them into the promised land. Okay, so who has the Bible reading for today if you want to come up? Does anyone have the Bible reading? Because I think someone took it. Can you come up? So this is a very interesting reading. I chose this. Mark, is this good? I chose this reading because, Corey, is this going to be up on there?
Do you want the actual verse or the Bible side?
If you have it. Thank you.
Deuteronomy 8:6-18. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs gushing out into the valley and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing, a land where the rocks are iron and you can dig copper out of the hills. When you have eaten and are satisfied, praise the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commandments, his laws, and his decrees that I am giving you this day. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, when you build fine homes and settle down, and when your herds and flocks grow large, and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. He led you through the vast and dreadful wilderness, that thirsty and waterless land, with its venomous snakes and scorpions. He brought you water out of the hard rock. He gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, something your ancestors have never known, to humble and test you, so that in the end it might go well with you. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors, as it is today.
Thank you, Susan. So this is power-packed, filled with different things. But you can see, like how Stephen was saying, how the land provided for them in so many different ways. But if they forgot their Lord, right, when they forget about him, that's where it all goes off, okay? So Jesus, with one sentence, the ground of a certain rich man, is bringing them back to all of the verses that was just read in the Old Testament. And he's reminding them of their heritage and of his faithfulness. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land. Be careful that you don't forget the Lord your God. So I call this the art of remembering. The scripture always talks about remember this, remember when, remember that, okay? What do you remember? What story do you tell yourself? When life comes at us, when you're consumed by all the different things going around you, what do you see? What's the internal story that you keep telling yourself? What do you reflect back to? What's your center? This is the art of remembering, because we all tell ourselves a certain story. See, it's just easy to get caught up in our lives and see the world through my lens, that we forget God's goodness. When things are going well, we forget his promises. We forget his faithful acts that he gave us in our past. And this is Jesus' way of once again putting their heritage before them. Remember that I'm your provider. Remember that I provided you the manna through the wilderness. Remember I rescued out of slavery and I led you into the promised land. Remember that I have what I've done and what I have said I would do. Remember. See, the Israelites of all people should have learned that God is in control and that God is their provider, just like we should know it today. But oftentimes, we live like I am in control and I am the provider. Okay? So last week, I told you that I struggled with pride. And one of the last verses that Susan just read changed my life. It's Deuteronomy 8:18. It says, you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. See, when I first became a Christian, again, remember, I was 21 years old. I felt like I was on top of the world, chasing my childhood dream. And everything that I did, like, I could throw a baseball fast. That was me. That was my ability. I worked my tail off, and I took great pride in how hard I worked. So it was my great work ethic that got me to where I was. And everything had to do with I. And when I became a Christian and I came across this verse, because I used to say that to all the other people, just work hard, and you'll get what you deserve. If you put in the time, you put in the energy, you'll get it. Now there's some truth to that, obviously, right? But the bigger point was God trying to get my attention and saying, Sean, humble yourself, because who's the one that gave you those abilities? Think about it. Not everyone can throw 90 miles an hour. You just think you just could do it? Just because? Someone gave you that ability. It was a God-given gift. Where'd your work ethic come from? Maybe it came from your mother who worked 3 jobs. Was it really just you? And this verse wrecked me. And he said, who gives you your intelligence? Who gives you the place that you live in? The fact that we live in America and even have the opportunity to pursue our dreams. Right? So all these things started coming back to me, and I had to reflect. It says, God gives you the ability to produce wealth. So when I started thinking, well, this is my money. I earned it. I worked hard for it. It's mine. I can do what I want with it. That's the pull of the culture, pulling us way off of the cross. This verse centers us and says, you know what? Remember that it's the Lord your God that's your provider. He's the one who's in control. He's the one who will lead you to where he wants you and place you where he needs you because of the mission, not because of what you think you want. So this verse, I hope that it challenges you to give you maybe a new perspective, because the art of remembering is a form of humility, right? It breaks the pride, and we start to say, you know what, maybe it's not all about me. Maybe it's not what I thought it was. So the key verse is, my life doesn't consist in the abundance of possessions. Could you say that with me? Go ahead. So this parable should bring back lots of memories for them. Luke 12, 16 through 19. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. Now listen to how many times he uses the word I and my. Okay? Think about this. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Who's God here? Who's in control? Who's being pulled off of the mark? Who's the provider? This is who I was when I was playing baseball. This is exactly my reasoning and my thinking. And God's trying to break that in all of us. It has nothing to do with I and what's mine. Because greed and pride, they take away gratefulness to God, and it also takes away the ability to think of the other. When you're consumed by getting ahead and having more, we lose sight of what God has put in front of us. Now, I want to make a very quick but important point. Jesus does not condemn this man for having a great crop. Okay, I want you to hear that loud and clear. So sometimes you hear pastors talk about this, and it's like you shouldn't be wealthy, you shouldn't be rich, and you shouldn't strive to excel. And that couldn't be further from the truth. If God's given you the gift of earning money and being wealthy, then by all means, pursue that and get as much as you can, but it's the purpose of what you're going to do with it. The more you have, it should make sense to you, the more we have, the more we should bless others. Right? And it's that purpose and the perspective. That's all it is. It's just being challenged. But it is saying the more wealth that you have, the more the pull of the culture is on you. Because it's just so easy to be consumed with self. Okay? So Ruth, could you come up and share your story? And we'll close with this. I asked Ruth to share because in Luke 12:20, it says, but God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. And then he talks about being, who will get, can you get the microphone? Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. So this idea, Ruth's story, I felt like when she shared it with me, this idea of blessing others, when we take the time to get the materialistic things out of the way, this can what can happen.
I worked with Sean for about 27 years at Community Covenant Church. And he started as a toddler. Anyway, I retired from there and got a job at Country Gardens Health and Rehab on Route 6. Now, I have to say health and rehab, but I know you think nursing home. but I'm not allowed to say that. Anyway, to get to work every morning, let me backtrack a minute. I'm in and out of my car 6, 7, 8 times a day for my job. So, in all kinds of weather. So I have a super duper winter coat, and I have an awesome raincoat, and I have a great umbrella. Well, my umbrella broke. So I went and I bought the Mercedes of all umbrellas. This thing had a leather handle. It was a push button open, push button close. It was awesome. And I deserved it because I'm out in the rain a lot. So I woke up one morning and it was pouring buckets. This was like a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe. And it was downpour. So I knew I had the new umbrella, so I unbuttoned the hood off the back of my raincoat. I figured I don't need the hood. So I cut through the back roads, and I come out at a red light to turn left to head to Route 6. And I'm stopped at that red light, and across the street is this little restaurant, and there's a man sitting on cardboard with a hoodie, and he's crouched over like this, and he is soaking wet. I can tell he's soaking wet. So right away I get the, I'm like, no, this is a brand new umbrella. I've never used it yet. I should at least get a chance to use it a few times. So I took the left and headed down Route 6. All the way I argued with the Lord. It's like, it has owls on it. He's not going to want this stupid umbrella. You got to give it to him. You got to give it to him. Pulled into Country Gardens, parked the car, turned the engine off, and sat there, and I thought, you're not going to let up, are you, on this? And he didn't. So I started the car, went back down Route 6, pulled into the parking lot, and I pulled in close enough to where he was sitting, and I put the window down, and I handed him my Mercedes umbrella. So he reached up and he said, oh, an umbrella, thank you. So I had to pull in further to the parking lot to turn around, and as I did that, he walked around the front of my car with the umbrella open, and my umbrella, and so I put the car window down, and he was crying. Nobody cries in front of me without me losing it, so I started crying too. And so I gave him money for lunch, and I said, go in and have a lunch, dry off, and then use the umbrella when you come out. And I told him, I am going to be praying for you that God will restore your life. He was a Vietnam vet. It was obvious. That's a forgotten war. Those people never got what they needed when they came back. And so I've been praying for him every single day. So to continue my day, I went back to Country Gardens. Now, mind you, I've taken the hood off my coat. So it's pouring buckets, and I'm in and out of my car with no umbrella and no hood. By the end of the day, I was drenched as much as he was. But the peace I felt in my heart and the happiness, it's like it's still with me. And I still haven't bought another umbrella. But when I do, I'll give it away a lot easier than I did the first time.
Thanks. Thank you. You know, sometimes we want to make it the big things, and sometimes I think it's the small things done over, consistently that makes a huge difference. So let me just conclude with this. What can our response be to this teaching? How can we take action? And it starts with, if you don't have a will or a trust, that's a good place to start. It's vitally important to have that. And then if you have adult children, to have a discussion with them. So that might be something you might want to do. Another idea might be try a use what you have month, right? So whenever you think you need to go and buy something, first try to use whatever you already have. You'll be shocked how often something you already possess will do the trick. How about take a 30-day catalog fast? Right? All that useless mail that comes in the mail, and it just pulls you, right? The tug of the culture is pulling. Don't look at those things for a month and start to be grateful for the things that you already have. How about if you struggle with impulse buying? Okay? If you struggle with that. Whenever you are at a store, take a picture of the thing you think you really want and then wait 1 week. If you can still remember it a week later without looking at the picture, consider making the purchase. But maybe at the end of the month, see how many items you didn't remember. And then maybe another one might be just clean out your closet If there's anything in there that you haven't worn in a year, donate it. You know? So those are just some things that you can do. Let me end with this question. When is enough enough? That's what this man was wrestling with. This idea of hoarding and storing up for the future. Right? When is enough enough? All right. All of us are challenged by this. Let me just pray for us, because I feel like this is something that we can get ahead of, and it will help us as individuals, and if we're married, in our marriages. Father, help us. This pull of the culture is constantly at us. And it's trying to make those possessions and materialism the center of all that we do. It's trying to get us off the mark. It's trying to consume us. I ask that you would help us to be focused on the needs of others in our lives, that you would help us to break the power of money and to be generous and to find out where we can do acts of kindness. So, Lord, I ask that your Spirit would help us. And, Lord, and if there's married couples in here that's struggling with this, I pray that you'd open up doors of communication, that you'd help them to get to that center place at the cross where there'd be great dialogue, there'd be action steps that they can take, and that they'd be healed in this area so that they can be set free. Lord, we commit this time to you, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for coming to church. And make sure that all those things get eaten, and now the coffee and the water, it's great. Thank you.